This is a comment to the skeptic community who recently felt that they had to comment about the ongoings in Charlottesville. And the main reason why I'm making this hopefully not too long video in English is because the majority of the skeptic communities are making videos in English, and while I have no hope or little hope that they will look at my small channel, I wanted to contribute here something, because there is one severe misattribution and misleading, a false narrative spread through, I don't know, purposeful lies or lies because they don't understand it. Now I have to assume that whatever I say and have to criticize about the skeptic community, people like Sargon of Akkad, I cannot attribute stupidity. So I must assume purpose. And here is the thing. What we hear from the skeptic community, not only since Charlottesville, but in the last few years, is that there are evil collectivists on the left and evil collectivists on the right. And I'm sorry, but I have heard this so many times, and it is horseshit. It is absolutely horseshit. First and foremost, I'm just right-leaning center. So I'm defending here a position in part which is not even mine. But it has to be explained for the sake of truth and reality. It is one of this, a lot of skeptics are themselves on a liberal, libertarian view. So they have this idea of minimal government, which is a valid idea. It's just not my idea. And the problem is these liberal skeptics or libertarian skeptics always presume that there should be only absolutes. Either there is the absolute undoing of government, or there is the evil of collectivism. And I'm sorry, that is the first idiotic bullshit which they, with their intelligence, should know better that it is a lie. I mean, I would even defend the left side from this, that I would never come to the idea that everyone who is a socialist wants an all-powerful government. Saying that is ludicrous. The skeptics lie when they presume there is only the alternative of their libertarian liberal views or an all-powerful government that controls everything, aka collectivism. This is bullshit. Especially speaking now for people on the right side, that we say that the government should regulate some important things does not mean that the government should control everything. I know few people on the right side, or actually no people on the right side, who actually reasonably really demand such a level of collectivism to say, yes, we want the government to control everything. And the example they take is, the skeptics, is of course Hitler. Hitler is the ultimate example for arguing against right people, whether this is our communist and socialist enemies or whether it is our friends from the skeptic community. Always what we suggest and what we think is compared to Hitler. Now let me say one thing. Many on the libertarian side argue that Hitler proves that National Socialism, because it has socialism in the name, proves that all right-wingers are just another form of collectivism. Another form of socialism, even. And far be it from me to defend National Socialism. But since it is like the extreme which they say we are heading towards, we desire, let me make one thing clear. When Hitler reigned in Germany, no factory owner was taken his property away. No one who was rich was taken money away. No one of the bankers, of the speculators, of all the capitalist top were taken away one thing. There was an element of planning in the economy for the sole reason that there was a world war going on. And in this world war, Germany was under the impression that only an organized and concentrated effort in the economy would help win the war. It was because of the war that the economy was coordinated by the government. It was never taken away as a property. And let's assume, just for the thinking, that the war would have ended without the defeat of Nazi Germany. The economy would have gone on free as before. There would have been some regulations, as there are some regulations in every country. There is literally no country which has no element of regulation and control in the interest of the broad masses, which is a reasonable suggestion, which is not collectivism. Saying that there must be some safety precaution, for instance, for food, that there is regulated what companies can put into food and what not, that on the package of the food the companies have truthfully to write the ingredients, what is inside, and so forth and so forth. There are logical elements which the collective of people, aka the nation or the government, which works on behalf of the public, should regulate, for instance, environmental protection. This is something that has to be looked into. To what degree, to what length, it's debatable, but there are elements which are in the interests of everyone. The res publica, the interest of the common good, there is that element. It is always balanced with the rights of the individual. But to say that right-wing movements are collectivists in the same sense like Marxists is ludicrous, is wrong, and is a conscious lie and mislead. I know not a single person on the right side, from center-right to the extreme right, who literally want to control everything or that much as the level of a Marxist. That is simply not true. The reality is that most people on the right are much closer to libertarian ideas than the ideas of socialists and communists are to liberal ideas. So always pretending that, oh, you have evil left collectivists and evil right collectivists is an untrue statement. And I must assume that intelligent people like Sargon must be aware or could be aware of that. Then there is the second point. The fight between white identitarians and, let's say, feminists and Black Lives Matter, or all the movements for blacks and women and all the movements for whites. Can it be denied that every single race, every single identity can make a pride march and the entire world applauds and celebrates, and the world would turn upside down if in a single country someone would dare to make a white pride march? Just look at the Wikipedia entries. What does it say about black pride, about Asian pride, about gay pride, about women pride? It's all positive. And then read what they write about white pride. I've never been proud to be white because I personally would found this a ridiculous thing. I've never been proud to be gay because I would found it hilarious to be proud of something that is given by me by the power outside of my control. But that people celebrate in their identity as something positive is something I cannot see as horrendous. Now the reality is that the skeptics assume that there are two evil sides of collectivists who are just both wrong. And all the nuances, all the details, all the cause and effect, that is a line that there was one thing that happened first and the other came as a result of this. That is the big difference in this story. What was the situation in the 1980s and 90s, before the political correctness got so strong? I remember this. I was a kid in the 1970s, a teen in the 1980s, and 20-something in the 1990s. During that time, in Western Europe, and by and large also in North America, there was no racial problem. The blacks, who were still in an economic bad situation in some regions, got support from the government, which was right and well and the humanitarian thing to do. The situation of women was looked at, and it was said, where women are really oppressed or harassed, we should step in and prevent such things. These are the morally right humanitarian things to do. So the West was on a very good way. And the proof of this is simply the fact that people from every non-white region desired in large number to come to white countries. If white countries were on the apex of racism and the apex of sexism, as the left assumes today, or lies today, why would millions of people from non-white countries so much desire to come to white countries? You can see how many people want to immigrate into Saudi Arabia, how many people want to immigrate to African countries, how many people want to immigrate into non-white countries. And then look how many people desire to immigrate into white countries. And if that does not give you a clue which country, not because of the race, but because of the setup of these countries, is the more desirable, the more peaceful, the more prosperous, the more free, then you have lost your brain. Now the reality is that black people have their own countries in Africa. Arab people have their own large region with their Muslim customs in the large Arabian region. The Asians and the Indians, speaking the Hindu, have their own large regions for themselves. Nobody goes to China, to Japan, to Thailand, to India, to Egypt, to Ghana, to South Africa, and says there are way too few white people here. This is unbearable. You have to have more white people in your country. If there was globalism and the mixture was the idea of the future, would that not be the logical thing we would see? That leftist activists would go to Kenya and say, oh, you have way too few white people here in Kenya. You have to import white people because that is diversity, and diversity is a strength. And so forth with any other country which is not predominantly white. No, they demand this only in formerly or still predominantly white countries. I will admit that the situation in North America is a tricky one, given the fact that the white people came there as conquerors, which nobody denies that it was not a nice and moral thing to do. However, the reality is that the United States of America was not an immigrant country for everyone, but for Europeans. 90% of all that was built by white people, and of course, to a degree, black slaves. Though these two groups have a right to America, the children of the black slaves, because they were forced, and to the large majority, the white people whose ancestors for generations created the United States of America. They have a right for this country because their ancestors built this land. Every single stone that stands there was built by them. Just the same as, say, Egypt. Egypt was built for thousands of years by Egyptians. It is their land by right of heritage. I could not go as a German, as a white guy to Egypt and say, I demand to have a part of this. I have no right to do this. It is their soil, their earth, their civilization. The Egyptians built this country through centuries of their people. And through that centuries of hard work, the land of Egypt belongs to the Egyptian. It does not belong to Japanese, it does not belong to Indians, it does not belong to Germans, and it does not belong to anyone else. So nobody can go to Egypt and say, I demand that you open borders and give me a part of your country. No, they will say, this is the land for 1,000 years our ancestors built until they bled for the defense of this country. Their sweat went into the soil, tilling this country, building these monuments, building these cities, defending our cities. And for these thousands of years, we have the right that this is our country alone. And we let in who we want and not whom we not want in. And it is not to anybody but the Egyptians to decide this, who is in Egypt. And that right that we give the Egyptian for Egypt, the Japanese for Japan, the Thai for Thailand, and so forth for every country in the world, we Europeans require for our countries in Europe. This is not unfair. This is not preposterous. This is not racist, and this is not Nazi. Only the most vile and evil person in the world can assume that when white people group together in Europe to say, now these are our countries by right, and only we say whom we want in and whom not. When you actually think that this is evil, you are evil or you are stupid. It is the right of every people to have the only say who lives in their country. Now we have seen that against the will of the vast majority of Western Europeans, the Western European countries have been flooded by people from all the corners of the world. Many of them not in mortal threat of death. Not as asylum seekers, but as people who often lived well in their own countries, but then they looked in their smartphones and say, oh, life in Germany looks much better than here. So they went away. This would be a topic for itself, but we Europeans are the only ones who have the right to this ground. Our ancestors here built these countries for thousands of years. We built the cities, we built the civilization, we built the ideas. We defended this ground with the life and blood of our ancestors for thousands of years. And this blood and sweat for the defense of this soil gives us, and only us, the right to this place. If we are hospitable and allow others to come in, that may be so if we as a majority decide so. And within limits we might do so. But they are guests. They have not a right to come. It is generosity that we offer them to come, and we say you can become one of us because we, the majority, have decided so. But there was no majority decide to do that, neither in Germany, nor in France, nor in the United Kingdom, nor in Spain, nor in any Western European country. And I doubt that in the United States of America, the majority of Americans ever would agree to such a great influx from South American countries, especially, of course, majority from Mexico. It is not that we look down on the other races. It is not a matter that we dislike these people. It is just if you invite someone to your birthday party in your house. You say, okay, these 10 people, you are nice people, I like you, you're my friends, come in, have a birthday. Have a cake with me, drink some beer. But it still remains my house. And if the party is over, I say, okay, it was nice that you was here, shared with me this wonderful event, but now please go home into your own house. If you have problems with your house, ask me for help. To a degree, I might help you. If you are in financial trouble, I might say, here, I can loan you a bit money so you can repair your kitchen. That is what civilized people of good morals do. But what we do not want is to give away our home. What we do not want is by force one of our neighbors just opens our door and says, sorry, my house is not so pleasant than yours, and I'm just now moving in. This is what it is about. This has nothing to do with collectivism. This has nothing to do with evil Nazis, evil right-wingers. We white people are the only ones who have the right to Europe. Nobody else has a right to live here. We can extend this out as an act of generosity to others. If the majority of the people in the various European countries would vote so. But we were not asked so. It was forced upon us. As I said, the situation in the United States is difficult since it is land that was colonized. But everything that was built, the cities, the riches, the prosperity, the chances, were built by white men, and to a degree, of course, the enslaved blacks, and later the liberated blacks. These two groups, the descendants of the black slaves and the descendants of the white settlers, these two groups have all the right to the United States of America. Not Mexicans, not South Americans, not Arabians, not Chinese, if they would. Nobody. Only these two groups, because only they built the United States of America. For many generations, not as much as here in Europe. This is the reality. Now, when people at the right side sometimes go to an excess, like dressing them up like Nazis, whether it is serious or trolling, I cannot say. It is stupid, it is despicable, and it leads to nothing, no doubt. Because it's in an extreme which will mostly appall people. So it is at the least a stupid strategy. But there were 10 people or 15 people in that rally. And they now are said to be stand for all. The white people are fighting for their existence. This existence has become under attack from the left side and from a massive influx of immigrants. So when we say, hey, wait a second, we fight for white rights, it is not the same, because that is only the reaction to the attack that came first. The left side allied itself with massive influxes of immigrants. And they did so on purpose for one simple reason. The left knew that socialism after 1990 had failed. I was young enough at the time to experience when the Berlin Wall fell. At that time, we all in the world thought, finally socialism and communism is defeated, and the idea that socialism works has disproven once and for all. But that was brave optimism and stupidity. For the reality was that the left was not willing to give up their nefarious idea. was not willing to give up their nefarious plans, but they remodeled themselves once again. And so they said, oh, let's find a different group which we can call oppressed. And they found the immigrants. The left from before 1990 had zero interest in immigrants. They did not care about oppressed people in Muslim regions. The left did not care about the people in Africa, just beyond the sometimes, oh, those poor people. Those were not real target groups for the lefts to care about. But suddenly, when the economic model crashed, and the white proletariat finally realized that socialism was a crappy idea, they needed some other fools to use for their ideas. And they have found these fools in the mass migrating groups from Africa and Arabia. They are in the belief, whether it is a solid belief or not, that if we bring masses of Mexicans and South Americans into the USA, the left assumes that they will have a large reservoir of voters for the Democrat Party and for left-wing extreme positions. And likewise, the left politicians in Europe think, oh, if we have all these Arabs and Turks coming in, they will all vote for our left parties and our left ideologies. That is the sole reason why left politicians support mass immigration. If South Americans and Mexicans, if Arabs and Turks would largely vote right-wing parties, the entire left movement would be against immigration. That is the basic truth, and that is all it is about. There may be foolish idealistic students who really are misled to think it is about something else, something humanitarian. But it never was. We white people never wanted to exclude others. Most of us, even the most right-wingers, have and had friends who are migrants, who are Asian, who are black, who are Arabs, who are Turks, and we have no quarrel with these people. But the reality is that we are robbed of our own lands. Who can expect of us to sit idly on with the ass on our hands and accept this? It is ludicrous when the skeptic community constantly presumes that this is the same than our enemy. The left-wing radicals have started a movement of mass immigration and supported that, and we are just defending our own. We are defending our lands, our culture, to remain the majority in our own lands, which is our right by the thousands of years that our ancestors created these lands. This is not that we look down on anyone. This is not that we want anyone be killed or be neglected. We are willing to reach out in help to other people, other races, other countries, other continents. But where they are, not by importing them by the millions. The skeptic community presuming and repeating the false narrative proposed by the left that our struggle is not what it is, a struggle of self-defense, a fight for our existence. If the skeptic community continues this lie, we must continue to call them out on this lie.